Hello, learners. Hope you are keeping well. Uh, Today, we are going to look at economic geography with special emphasis on food security and food insecurity. Okay, that's going to be our special emphasis for today. And obviously, we need to look at firstly the exam guideline. Okay, and here, let me get my highlighter. Again, we said food security. All right, and food insecurity. We're going to look at the definitions, and then we're going to look at the importance of food security in South Africa. The emphasis is on food security, okay? And then factors influencing food security, okay? Those are the ones there. That means positive and negative factors, but it's in context of South Africa. Okay, that's going to be our main focus. Okay, so let's get going. All right. And I'm not getting going, but let's get going. Okay, right. Food security. And I want to emphasize this to a great extent. Food security is not putting the food in your parents' safe or keeping a security guard in your kitchen guarding the food. I'm just kidding. Okay, food security is a very important concept in terms of the well-being of people, right? And we can define it when all people have access to nutritious food to meet their needs for a healthy and active lifestyle. Okay? Remember, it's not when all people have food. That's too vague. Okay? The main words here is access to nutritious food. I'm going to over highlight this. They must have access to nutritious food. They must be able to get it or be able to buy it, whatever, okay, in order to lead a healthy and active life. So, main words access to nutritious food when all people have that, okay? And you'll see why it's important as we discuss these concepts of food security, insecurity, in factors favoring, hindering, etc. Okay, then food insecurity, when not all people have access to nutritious food. Again, not all, and the main word is access to nutritious food. Not all people to meet the needs for a healthy and active life. Okay, that is important. We're saying nutritious because we could get a situation where people may have enough food at home. They may have 20 bags of potatoes. Okay, and it'll be enough food maybe even for the month. But is it giving them all the nutrition, the proteins, etc.? So that is why we say not just having enough food, but nutritious food. I know I'm emphasizing this because learners in exams, right, they have enough food. No, it has to be nutritious. Like if you look at this diet here, okay, can you see it has protein, fruit with the different nutrients, vegetables, all right, nuts and whatever. So it's a well balanced, nutritious food, and it leads to this healthy young lady down here. You can see she looks healthy. She must have run about 100 kilometers, I think. Well, I won't do that, but I'm also relatively healthy because of this nutritious food. Okay. Right. Let's look at the importance of food security in South Africa. Right. There are so many of them. All right. If I had to go through all, okay, it's going to take me the whole night. And quite a bit of data that you'll have to buy. Okay, but we're going to pick up some main ones. Okay, and I'll bring one into context as we go through this list. Okay, but also note, learners, you must always bring your answers into context of the resource. Okay, if the resource shows a specific thing, you make sure your answer relates to that, unless the question is general and asks you for possible answers, etc. Please remember that. Okay, so let's look at this. Less pressure on the healthcare system. What do you mean by this, learners? Now, what actually happens here is that when we don't have food security, okay, people don't eat well. The likelihood of them becoming ill is greater, the resistance is less. So they become more ill more often in general. All right. And therefore, they visit healthcare facilities like hospitals, clinics, etc. Okay. Many people of our country don't have medical aid. So they get into the public healthcare system. You understand? Which then puts a lot of pressure on this system. Okay, so it releases pressure. It promotes economic development. Okay, if you've got a population that eats healthy, they're going to be more active, they're going to be more productive. All right, that's the first thing that will promote economic development. All right. And of course, they'll be more productive in educational institutions, etc., bringing out huge benefits or economic benefits for the country. All right. And of course, there'll be more money. If we're not putting pressure on things like the healthcare system, etc., there'll be more money for other forms of economic development. The examples are tremendous. I'm just using a few, right? As a positive social impact. And you can relate it to so many things, your quality of life, all right, where you'll be relating, enjoying your activities, etc. Okay, relating with people, active. That already is a social impact. When people are getting less ill in the family, it's traumatic for the parents when the child is ill, it's traumatic for the child when the parent is ill. You understand? More money can be spent on other basic needs. Okay, so there's so much about the social impact. All right, job creation. Okay, it will lead to job creation. As we mentioned, when you have food security, means you, I'm just again giving you some examples. It means that if you food security means that you can afford the food, you have the nutritious food, and if you can afford to buy the food, more food will be bought, more manufacturing, more farming, more selling, and therefore more people will be hired. All right, more people will be hired. So I'm giving you just some examples of that. Poverty reduction, of course, poverty reduction. All right, if you are well fed with nutritious food, etc., you are more active. Okay, you can be employed. Okay, you find again we're using education institutions, etc., that will be more productive, creating more people who are educated that can get better jobs or get jobs, etc. All right, so all these factors can result in poverty reduction. All right, and it's also a factor of the importance of food security in South Africa. Okay, I'm going to use one in context here. It impacts positively on teaching and learning. All right, now what do I mean by that? I'm looking at this resource down here, these two resources, and I am looking at how I can put that into context. Okay, so if I was given these two resources in an exam, all right, and then I would go for this factor. It shows that food security impacts positively on teaching and learning. If we look at these learners, I'll be skipping tough. You can see they've got a feeding scheme going on, they're eating healthy, all right, which will then result in active learning, all right, and teaching that's going on. In fact, if you look at the teacher, she's smiling and she looks very fit. So she's also eating healthy. There's food security, which impacts on this. And the impact is tremendous. We're educating our nation. All right. They have to be fed with nutritious meals. Therefore, they'll be more productive and the future of our country will be safe. So I can go on and on and on. And for various of these factors, I could bring different reasons for how food security is important. All right. I just gave my view here, which is geographically sound, but there will be various views. And as again I'm mentioning, put into context of the resource. Okay. Measures that can be taken to promote food security. What measures that can be taken? And we're making it specific to South Africa, it will apply to other countries. One of the big things that we have actually encouraged in our country is food gardens. Whether it's for your own use, because then you're still bringing food security, planting a variety of different products. You understand that can supplement your food in terms of nutritious food. Okay, you can also build. There's a food garden being made here. All right, it looks like on the side of a school. Yeah, it can supply food for the lady that's growing the food garden, and it could be sold. And by selling it, all right, it will also allow that person to maybe buy some type of food that's not found in a food garden. Okay, so promoting that is one of them. Storage, effective storage of surplus food produced. And we mean effective. Don't just pack them somewhere where it may go bad, as we say. All right. If we can store them, we can freeze them or whatever, and it stays good. You understand? In times of problems like droughts or when there's sudden shortage, we can take them out and use them during those periods. So that's another important thing. Support small scale farmers. And as you know, small scale farmers are producing on a much smaller scale, but they're producing for themselves and they aim to sell. Promote them. You understand? Whether it's through educating them with skills, financial assistance, etc. Because the more small scale farmers we have, the more food we will have for the farmer himself and for the community around the farmer. And eventually, maybe we could turn them into large scale farmers. Okay, so that's another one. Now, in a country where there's a lot of droughts, South Africa has massive droughts. Okay, you would have learned all your years about droughts. You understand? Uh, Storage or water storage facilities, no matter what, in the form of dams. You understand? Encouraging JOJOs into areas of small scale farmers where they'll have water supply, uh, whatever, water transfer schemes, okay, need to be implemented. So when these droughts hit, you understand, you watch it on television, etc. The large scale farmers with all their technology and whatever experience massive problems when drought hits. Okay, their farms are messed up, etc. So we need to improve it, building of storage dams, etc. So when droughts, example, hits, you understand, we still have water available for farming, producing crops, helping to promote food security. Okay, right. So, next one, reduce fertile soil damage and erosion. In a country where less than 13%, and some states, some books or resources, etc., state below 12%, and lowering, and there's further stats. So we have a very small part of our country that's arable, that can be farmed on, can be cultivated, etc. So we need to reduce that damage to that. Okay, because the more we damage, the less land we'll have for farming, the less food we will produce. So by encouraging better farming methods, all right, and techniques, teaching them crop rotation, planting different types of crops so we don't use the same nutrient and exhaust it, paddock grazing, moving cattle. You understand? When the grazing fields are almost dying out, there's no more vegetation, they move them to another area where they could graze on. So that could be very, very important. Then I would say effective implementation of land reform policies that you learned in settlement, land redistribution, etc. Okay, why I say effective? If it's fertile land, arable land, okay, give it to or transfer it to more farmers. Okay, of course, you have to teach them the skills, etc. So when land reform policies come and they transfer it to more farmers, and of course that should have an R, eh? Farmers. Ooh, my spelling is going off, and my so is my R. Okay, so farmers. Therefore, if these people farm on more farming products, promoting food security. Learners, once again, this is some of the measures that can be taken. Again, I know I'm saying this 100 times. Put it into context of your article. General, then go and give any of these answers. Okay, so that's promoting. All right. Then use of genetically modified foods. Okay, that's another way of promoting food security. Just a little about genetically modified foods. I don't like just to give you the word or the concept and then don't give you a little explanation. What they do there is foods produced from organisms that have had changes introduced in their DNA by using methods of genetic engineering. The DNA has been altered, okay, scientifically. Okay, now this is going to be a big one, all right, because if we get on and use this on a bigger scale, it has important stuff like a longer shelf life. You'll find products now on the shelf. Some of them expire the following year, right? So it can be kept and still used. Okay, it's more resistant to climatic conditions. Maybe now it will use less a water supply. It could be resistant to other climatic conditions like frost, etc. Brilliant. Okay, it will save the farmer costs on using various other methods, okay, to preserve the crops, to make sure it's not damaged. Also, it'll allow for more crops if there's less damage. And the food product is bigger, so it's larger. And after the long term, it's gonna food is gonna become cheaper once the farmer covers the cost of using genetic modification, etc. And initial costs he incurred. The bigger products now will have larger products, therefore he will make it cheaper. And if you look at this is a good example. This is the original size of a tomato. That's a good size. Genetic engineering. Now look at the size of the tomato. It's huge. Okay, so it'll bring in more food for the people. Of course, we do need to know, right, that it could have negative effects because it hasn't been tested properly in terms of length of time. You need more and more and more years. I know it's in existence for quite a few years now, but more testing needs to come up. And then in the end, we will know whether there's any negative effects or not. But it's a brilliant idea, all right? If with no negative effects, it's going to really help food security. Okay, let's go on. Factors that impact negatively on food security. And the first factor that comes up is poverty. Remember, food security is when all people have access to nutritious food, means they can get it. Unfortunately, with poverty, in our country, we have more food than the population actually needs. All right. But one problem is not all people in our country can afford proper nutritious food. All right. So they buy what they can afford. And it may not be as nutritious, may not contain all the proteins, vitamins, etc. They don't have that balanced diet. Okay. Therefore, it leads to food insecurity for them. They cannot afford to buy healthy food or buy things you need to farm with. All right, they may farm a specific thing, but certain things they may need certain fertilizers, etc., and they can't farm those things. So even there, they'll produce certain crops that may not be a fully balanced diet. Okay, but the main thing is they cannot afford to buy healthy food to ensure food security. Okay, another one, climate change. At the moment, learners, droughts is a huge problem in our country, all right, which destroys crops. Okay, and we have periodic droughts. Recently, we had one, all right, where it caused so much damage. All right, you remember even the Western Cape was totally dry, etc. about a year or so ago. All right, and this is a serious problem. And what is climate change doing? It's making the problem worse. Okay, so it causes these natural disasters like droughts, which mess up, okay, food security. Limited arable land or fertile land on which to farm, that is a limitation. All right. It's spread out. Certain areas you have limited more limited than other areas rather, and that limits your farming. Okay, which then has a negative impact on food security. Whoa, this one all of us feel. Increasing food prices. And you know what? You sometimes watch it in the supermarkets, etc., with the old ladies with their pension money, and they come with the items. You understand? And within a month, the prices have increased. Okay, and they put it on the counter, and suddenly they realize they don't have that amount of money due to price increase, and they have to remove items. It's sad, but it's a reality. It creates food security insecurity. All right, or negatively impacts on food security. We feel it. I know sometimes our parents or your parents may say, "Whoa, we have to cut down on this. Look at the price of the food nowadays. It has increased." Okay, so it definitely impacts. And then subsistence farmers, through poor farming techniques, damage arable land. Learners, we need to save the land. We need to ensure that we don't keep reducing our arable land. You understand? Subsistence farmers, they don't purposely do it, but they need to eat. And they use various farming techniques because they don't have the finance and proper, they may be highly intelligent, but they don't have the facilities to do proper farming, okay, and the skills on that. All right, so they damage the land due to poor farming techniques. All right, this picture here, learners, you can see it's a large scale farm. Okay, and can you see what droughts have done to it? Okay, massive damage, and how many people this would have fed. Okay, so those are the negative impacts, learners. All right, and now it's time for DBE past paper. Thank you, DBE, for your paper. Right. Again, we do the same thing, learners. We look at what the figure is telling us, the importance of food security. This has come up. Now, here I'm going to show you that you won't get everything from the notes, right? The notes are a very good guideline, but even you may find that there are specifics that are put, answers that are put into context of the cartoon. okay, that are easy to answer. So please do not learn your work in parrot fashion. It's not in my notes. You understand? It is in your notes. You have to take it further and think out of the box. That's the beauty of geography. You understand? So let's get going with this question. Let's see here. We have a cartoon. We have a few guys sitting out there. And let's look at the first comment. Great news, you guys. The media says we're no longer hungry, just food insecure. Major pun, eh? We're no longer hungry. Maybe they're assuming there's enough food around. All right. But they are insecure here. And they're sitting on the streets. Doesn't seem like they're working, etc. All right. So maybe they can't afford food. And what is this guy doing? He's looking in the bin. Okay. Probably for food. No hunger, only food insecurity. Okay, that's a humorous one. There's no hunger, but you have food insecurity in terms of what they're saying in the amount of food, etc. But there's food insecurity here. And I think this also brings it out here. Will work for food, eh? That's another one here. And you can see he's looking for food because he's throwing out all the fish bones, etc. But this one, actually brings it out, means they are unemployed. They're sitting on the streets here, most probably begging. All right, and they're giving a sign, will work for food. That's how desperate they are. They are food insecure. No matter how much food the country has, you understand. But if they can't afford it, they can't afford it. Okay, so it's quite an interesting one, and it's good to look at cartoons sometimes. We don't just take them literally, we read into the message of the cartoon and what it's trying to tell us. And of course, we relate it to the concept of food security in this case. Okay, so let's look at the questions. All right. First one, what is food security? And most probably asking for a definition because it's a concept. Now, learners, if I look at this definition, it says when a country is able to provide access to nutritious food for its inhabitants. It's a bit different, to the definition that we have discussed. The main words is inhabitants having access to nutritious food. Access is the most important thing. People having access to nutritious food. And if you've got that, and all people have access to nutritious food, you've answered what food security is. Okay? You got that, learners? Remember, it's a concept, so you can put in your own words, but the main words must be there. All people have access to nutritious food. In any concept you have, you can word it differently, but the main words, and I'm going to call them action words here, all right, must be found in the definition. This was a good idea to look at the different ways, eh? All right. Why does the use of the word great news not align, fit in with the message of the cartoon? It definitely doesn't fit in. It's actually not great news. Okay, because they are not looking, they are food insecure. All right, so let's look at the answers here. Food insecurity is not great news. All right, due to the fact that people still do not have access to nutritious food. You can see they're still looking in the bins. Whatever they get, they're going to eat. Whether it's full nutrition or not, they'll still eat to just fill their stomachs. All right. Can you see people are still searching in dustbins for food? It's not great news. You understand? People are begging on the streets. The examiner has given this, although you don't see clear, but some learners may look as if those people are sitting there and begging, all right, and therefore give that answer. But give the more definite answers first. He's searching in the dustbin. All right, people still don't have access to nutritious food. Okay, those are your more definite answers. All right, let's go on. Next one. Even if there was food security, why could it not help people in the cartoon? Even if there was food security, people are unemployed. So even if there was enough food, you understand, available, These people won't get it. They don't have the money to buy. Yes, they will be able to get a certain amount of food. And let me correct myself there. They won't be able to get the nutritious food that they need for food security. All right, they'll get any scraps or anything that they may have limited money here and there to buy. It's not definitely nutritious food. They will not be able to afford the food due to high prices. Okay, even if you get a little money, they may buy some bread or whatever to eat, not getting all the proteins, etc. Unaffordable to those living in streets. Now, I know some of these answers are similar, learners, but we have to give the examiners have to give the various options. Okay, so it's unaffordable to them living on the streets. Okay, inaccessibility to them, they still search for food. It's not accessible. So yes, it's different ways of explaining the same thing at sometimes, but we have to give, or the examiners have to give the different options. It's inaccessible to them. They can't get it. They don't have the money, you understand, or means or whatever to get the food. So that is why, even if there was enough food, you understand, they could not afford it. Okay? And this question now, last question number two. Some of the options, learners, there are more. It's a 2019 November paper. So if you look at more options, you can do so. But it's quite a long list. Remember, exam papers do not disadvantage learners. You must give all the options available to the markers because geography is a very open, critical, and there's so many views of looking at it. So memos can be long. But you go with the more definite ones first. All right, like this one. Use of genetically modified crops. I wrote that down. I'm happy. You understand? Okay? I'm so happy that I've got the answer. And suddenly it's a vague answer and I don't end up with marks. Because if I look at the question, it says, of course, a paragraph of 8 lines, discuss ways to improve food security in South Africa. So if I say genetically modified crops that are related to food security, no, I need to relate it to food security. So what does it do? It ensures higher yields of crops. Can you see it's a more food? Can you see I have to give the fact that relates it to food security? I can't just talk genetically modified crops. Please, learners, for all your sections, improve scientific farming methods, of course, that will also encourage higher yields. Can you see how I'm relating it? More training and skills development will increase large scale farming. All right, in terms of number of large scale farmers, remember we used that there. Can you see how we're applying it now to a specific question? We said educate small scale farmers who could then become large scale farmers, all right, or we could even help the large scale farmers with more techniques, etc. Okay, a greater variety of crops should be grown as we have a diverse climate. Okay, so variety would supplement food security with the different types of crops. All right, and of course, they may have different resistance to things like droughts, etc. So all of them would not just die in the drought conditions. Okay. Right. Land reform programs, of course, if used effectively, where you transfer ownerships to more farmers, which would increase crop production. This is more or less same from our notes. All right. But can you see again? It will increase food production because there are more farmers. Again, related to food security. Sustainable agriculture, using your agricultural resources wisely so you still have them in the years to come, etc., will serve to protect agricultural land for a long time, ensuring food production. Again, yeah, it brings out its relationship to food security, because if you use proper methods in terms of maintaining the land, etc., you will still have a large amount of land that is arable and you'll be able to farm in the future. Remember, we're not only looking at the now, we're worried about our people in the future also. So it will maintain and ensure more food production, even for the future. All right. Government should provide incentives to protect small scale farmers, which would increase food production. You understand? Incentives like if you farm your crops, we will then help you with transport, or we will then promote your crops to be sold, whatever. You understand? Provide those things so the small scale farmers will say, whoa, we're farming, we're making something out of it. It may increase the number of small scale farmers, which would increase food production. Brilliant. Free trade, all right, where negotiated can happen between people. It's free trade, remember. All right, so importing of food is easier and more accessible between people. Okay, planting a variety of crops will prevent soil erosion and ensure fertile land for crops. You remember monoculture, you're planting the same crops on that piece of land, it'll use up all the nutrients of that land. Okay, especially with smaller scale farmers, etc. So planting a variety, you understand, of crops would use different minerals, and therefore the soil will have time to recover and still be fertile. Create employment opportunities for their skill base. I look at it this way, all right? We need to create employment opportunities in our country, all right? Decrease the unemployment rate. I would look at it that way, because if we decrease the unemployment rate, you understand, more people working, they will be able to afford, you understand, and nutritious food, okay? Right. So use skills based. Find people with specific skills. Don't just say, okay, we're going to push for employment. You understand? Find out what their skills are, what they're good at. Build on that. Okay. Create more, because skills is one thing that's going to increase employment, also increase earnings, and therefore better life or well being. You understand? Therefore, better food. Food aid schemes, yes, it can be considered a solution, but remember, it's a temporary solution. All right? Okay, because you can't feed all people that are below or have food insecurity for the rest of their life. You have to teach them other skills so they can earn. But yes, food aid schemes is also a temporary solution. Learners, there's more to this. But as I say, I'm going to use up all your data. All right, you can refer to the 2019 June, November paper. All right, it gives you all the other options, but these are some of the things and the approaches to the questions. So I hope you have a better understanding of food security and food insecurity. The emphasis is on food security, all right, but you know the difference and you know the different things. Learners, this is so important for productivity, quality of life, etc., for people of our country and the world. All right, wish you well, all the best again, and goodbye.